when vulnerability becomes your superpower. Welcome, everyone. Today, I stand before you humbled and inspired after my recent conversation with Charlita Blackwell, a woman whose name may not yet echo in the halls of global recognition, but whose impact ripples through the lives of thousands. Charlita isn't just an advocate, she's a revolutionary who has single handedly transformed how Black women across America view their wounds, their worth, and their wisdom. Her work has created sanctuaries of healing in spaces where vulnerability was once considered weakness, and her courage has illuminated paths to freedom for those trapped in darkness. Have you ever wondered why we're so quick to hide our wounds? We've mastered the art of concealment, bandaging our pain, tucking away our struggles, perfecting the I'm fine smile while crumbling inside. We live in a culture that celebrates strength but whispers about weakness, that rewards resilience but recoils from rawness. What if I told you we've been getting it wrong all along? 3 years ago, a woman named Jenica stood at a professional crossroads that felt more like a cliff edge. As a Black executive who had built her career on appearing flawless and unshakable, she had perfected what she called her success mask. The polished LinkedIn profile, the immaculate presentations, the unwavering confidence that inspired her colleagues and intimidated her competitors. But behind closed doors, Jenica was disintegrating. I was dying inside, she later revealed on the Soft Girl Era podcast. While everyone around me was asking for my secrets to success, she laughed softly when she said this, but there was a tremor in her voice that spoke volumes. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was drowning while others wanted swimming lessons. The cultural expectation to embody the strong Black woman archetype had left her isolated on an island of her own making. She carried trauma like a secret briefcase, heavy but hidden, always by her side but never acknowledged. Then came the day when Jenica did something that felt like professional suicide. In a leadership meeting where everyone was sharing their quarterly wins, she instead shared her truth. Not in sanitized corporate speak about overcoming challenges, but with specific raw honesty about her journey through trauma and how it had shaped her leadership. The room fell silent. For 17 excruciating seconds, yes, she counted, no one spoke. And then a senior colleague began to cry. Another reached for her hand. By the end of that meeting, three other executives had shared struggles they'd never before voiced in that space. The moment I embraced my perfect imperfection, Jenica explained, was the moment I truly became a leader worth following. People don't connect with your highlight reel, they connect with your humanity. This is the first truth Charlita Blackwell emphasized in our conversation. You are not alone, and you do not have to stay in an abusive relationship. There is always a path out, even when fear and isolation make that path impossible to see. Let's pause here for a moment. I want you to really hear this. If you're in a situation where someone is diminishing your light, controlling your movements, isolating you from support, or making you question your own reality, you are not crazy. You are not overreacting. And most importantly, you are not alone. The statistics are staggering. 1 in 4 women will experience severe intimate partner violence in their lifetime. For Black women, those numbers are even higher. But behind every statistic is a human being with dreams, with worth, with a future that deserves to be lived in freedom. This brings me to Yanyesa Hughes Slaughter, whose story illuminates another powerful truth from my conversation with Charlita. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's actually your superpower. Janica, like many Black women, had internalized the message that strength meant suffering in silence. I thought being strong meant never letting them see you sweat, she shared. I didn't realize that pretending to be bulletproof was actually killing me slowly. Janica had become so accustomed to being everyone's rock that she'd forgotten how to be her own refuge. The turning point came after a particularly brutal week when she'd smiled through a promotion at work, counseled three friends through crises, organized her church's food drive, and silently processed her own grief over a miscarriage no one knew about. Standing in her shower on a Friday night, she finally broke. I screamed until my throat was raw, she recalled, and then I made a decision that changed everything. Jenica made a radical choice. Instead of hiding her scars, she began to speak openly about them, first in small, trusted circles, then more broadly as her confidence grew. She reframed her past not as something shameful to conceal, but as the very foundation of her resilience and wisdom. These scars, she would say, touching her heart, they're not just where I was broken, they're where my light now shines through. Her vulnerability fostered deeper connections than she'd ever known. It created space where others could be authentic too. Most surprisingly to Janixa, it transformed her leadership. People weren't repelled by her humanity, they were drawn to it. When I stopped performing strength and started embodying authenticity, she reflected, that's when my real power emerged. This is especially revolutionary for Black women who face unique pressures to appear invincible. The strong Black woman trope isn't just a stereotype, it's a survival mechanism born from generations of having to be twice as good while receiving half the support. It's a cape many wear with pride, but one that becomes unbearably heavy when there's no permission to take it off. But here's what Charlita Blackwell wants you to know: that cape was never meant to be a permanent fixture. It was a shield for a battlefield, not everyday armor for your whole life. Taking it off isn't weakness, it's wisdom. This brings us to Isha Miller, whose story embodies the third crucial insight from my conversation with Charlita. Building intentional support systems is essential for lasting recovery and growth. Isha's work with Black women in ministry revealed a heartbreaking pattern. Women serving as pastors, wives, and spiritual leaders were suffering in profound isolation. Expected to be pillars of strength for their communities, they had nowhere to bring their own pain, doubts, or struggles. The pedestal becomes a prison, Isha explained. When everyone sees you as their rock, where do you go when you're crumbling? One pastor's wife confided in Isha that she'd been silently battling depression for 7 years. I can't tell anyone, she said. They'd say I don't have enough faith. They'd question my husband's ministry. So I pray and I push through and I paste on that smile every Sunday. The mental health stigma within some faith communities compounded this isolation. Many women feared being labeled as lacking faith if they acknowledged depression, anxiety, or the effects of trauma. Aisha's response was revolutionary in its simplicity. She created what she calls accountability tribes, small intentional communities where women could be fully seen and supported. These weren't just casual friendships, but deep, committed relationships built on mutual vulnerability and growth. Healing doesn't happen in isolation, Isha insists. We were never meant to recover alone. These tribes became sacred spaces where women could speak the unspeakable, where they could lay down the weight of perfection, where they could practice the radical act of prioritizing their own well being. The results were transformative. Women who had suffered silently for decades finally found their voices. Mental health support became normalized. Most importantly, a new model of strength emerged, one that honored both resilience and rest, both power and vulnerability. This is what Charlita Blackwell means when she talks about building intentional support systems. It's not just about having friends, it's about cultivating relationships where you're loved not despite your struggles, but alongside them, where accountability isn't judgment, but rather a commitment to seeing and supporting your highest self. As Charlita so powerfully stated in our conversation, your tribe determines your vibe, but also your survival. Let that sink in for a moment. The people you surround yourself with aren't just influencing your mood, they're shaping your capacity to heal, to grow, to thrive after trauma. So, what does all this mean for you sitting here today? First, if you're in an abusive or toxic relationship, I want you to hear this clearly. You deserve better. Full stop. No qualifications. No what? But if only I were more patient, or if I just try harder. You deserve safety, respect, and love, period. And there are people waiting to help you find your way out, whether it's a trusted friend, family member, faith leader, or professional organization. Reach out today. The first step is often the hardest, but I promise you it's worth taking. Second, your vulnerability is not something to overcome, it's something to embrace. Those places where you've been broken and put yourself back together, they're not flaws. They're where your unique light shines through. They're the source of your deepest wisdom and your most authentic connections. And finally, you cannot, must not do this alone. Humans are hardwired for connection. We heal in community. We grow through relationship. Isolation is not just lonely, it's toxic to your recovery. I want to leave you with this challenge. Tomorrow morning, I want you to look in the mirror and ask yourself one question. What would I do today if I weren't afraid of my own vulnerability? Would you finally tell your story? Would you reach out for help? Would you build that tribe that could transform your healing journey? Because here's the truth that Charlita Blackwell has shown us: the world doesn't need more people pretending to have it all together. The world needs more people brave enough to show their scars, to speak their truth, to stand in their full, complex humanity. Your vulnerability isn't your weakness, it's your greatest untapped power. It's the bridge to your most authentic connections, it's the doorway to your deepest healing. So drop the cape, not because you're weak, but because you're ready for a more authentic kind of strength. The kind that doesn't require you to be bulletproof, but simply powerfully, gloriously human. Your most powerful chapter isn't behind you. It begins the moment you embrace the very parts of yourself you've been taught to hide. It starts now, today, with you, with us. Together, thank you,